Do you really think of it as having no point to it when you're making?
Of course, I mean, what's the point? Is like music supposed to be like a tool to get you somewhere else, or no? It's just kind of worth doing on its own.
Pow. Pow. Previously on the Elliott Smith Project. It's time for a deep dive into Either Or's fifth track, Pictures of Me. A painful look at fame and the isolation it brings, Pictures of Me is yet another Elliott Smith song that hides an incredible level of nuance in plain sight, one I'd totally overlooked before starting working on this video. We'll take a look at the production and the lyrics, and as always, we'll finish by going over the guitar part in detail, including a full playthrough with chord charts on screen. Let's get started. On Either Or, Elliott Smith was able to start expanding the vision for his solo music beyond the simple, mostly guitar and vocals sound of his first two albums. Similar to the second track, Alameda, Pictures of Me uses overdubs to create a full, bright-sounding backdrop for some pretty dark lyrics. From a production standpoint, there's one aspect that stands out, the panning. 2, 3, 4. Double tracking is an essential part of Elliott Smith's sound, especially with minimal instrumentation like guitar and vocals. Double tracking each part is an easy way to create a full sound. The effect is increased by panning the two doubles left and right. In many songs on the self-titled album, he used doubling and panning to create an immersive sound with just guitar and vocals. On Good to Go, for example, you can hear the guitars panned wide to the sides. Panning is an artistic choice in the mixing process. Just like EQ and compression, they're standard techniques, but each song presents new opportunities and challenges. And unlike some artists, Elliott Smith was always very involved in the mixing process, sometimes mixing entirely by himself. Fun fact number 1, this song was the first time Elliott Smith worked with Larry Crane, longtime collaborator and legendary recording, mixing engineer, and producer. When we listen to Pictures of Me, from the beginning all the way through the first verse, even though there's layered vocals, guitars, and organ, and eventually drum set and bass, everything is pretty centered. It's hard to tell if you aren't listening with headphones or on speakers, but of course no one was listening to music on iPhones and laptops back in 1997. The effect is striking. Everything sounds pretty boxed in, almost claustrophobic. It's like everything's taking place within a little picture frame right in front of you. So when we hit the chorus, the simple introduction of wide panning has a huge effect. This mixing decision works on two levels. First, it creates some nice contrast and gives the chorus a wider, bigger feeling, which most songs would benefit from. But secondly, when we look at the lyrics, the boxed-in sound gets deeper context. As a quick aside, I've always found it interesting how subjective lyrics are, not just their meaning, but their importance. Some people listen to music and completely ignore the lyrics. It just doesn't come through as words to them, or they don't follow the meaning of the lyrics. And for other people, it's the central part of any song, and one bad lyric, subjectively bad lyric, can ruin a song for them on its own. It's a long-standing tradition in pop music and pop art in general to cloak subversive or complicated subject matter in the sheen of clean and common tropes, like a backbeat or standard song form. Pictures of Me is basically about one thing, fame. Interestingly, though Either Or became a breakout album for Elliott Smith, largely due to its inclusion in the Good Will Hunting soundtrack, this song was written well before he had any broader fame, before his Oscar nomination and performance, before his talk show appearances. The pursuit of fame, as well as the machinery of the music industry, are topics Elliott Smith would often explore from a first-person perspective later in his career, on songs like King Crossing. But both Pictures of Me and Angelus, another song on Either Or we'll be covering soon, deal with the complicated relationship between art and fame in a way that feels prescient. I think it speaks to a central conflict in art making that all artists have, whether or not they ever experience much fame or success. The pursuit of success and all its benefits, not least of which being the ability to pay for housing, healthcare, and food, often feels at odds with the other, more abstract force that drives art making, pursuit of truth. That fundamental tension is a natural product of the culture industry, a term coined by Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer to describe the progressive commodification of art in Western society. According to this theory, mass-produced art like pop music, Marvel movies, and bingeable streaming television act as a social sedative, keeping us content even in dire economic circumstances as wage laborers under capitalism. In such an environment, higher art that speaks to deep human needs like freedom is deprioritized and pushed to the fringes because it can't be mass-produced. Artists within such a system are forced to restrain their pursuit of truth with formulaic, easily digestible elements to make it easily distributable if they hope to achieve any so-called cultural relevance. The filmmaker Werner Herzog talks about the pursuit of truth in art and the distinction between truth and more mundane fact.
That's what brings me in such opposition and rage against the so-called cinema verité, because the cinema verité believes and probably is confused about the distinction between fact and truth. Facts are something very superficial, and they ultimately get the accountant's truth. So there's an accountant's truth and there's something much deeper. And you will find that in great poetry. When you listen or when you read a great poem, it will occur to you very abruptly that there's a deep, enormous truth in this poem. And you feel like illuminated. And you don't have to analyze, and you don't have to read lots of literature about this very poem. You just know it instantly.
The distinction between fact and truth is very important in Elliott Smith's music because of the common misconception that his music is autobiographical. There's an attraction to artists' suffering because it helps listeners feel safe to explore their own buried pains and shames. For this reason, people often look to dramatize the struggles of their favorite artists. The narrative of Elliott Smith's life as a tragic story is disrespectful and inaccurate. While Elliott Smith struggled with addiction and did write autobiographically about it, he has spoken at length in his interviews about his love for inventing stories and characters to sing about. In this way, he moves past the facts of his life into the realm of deeper truth. To reach the truth, the stories and characters are of course based on his real experiences and those of others, but they aren't restricted by them. For example, many assume his songs about heroin use on the self-titled album, like Needle in the Hay or The White Lady Loves You More, were based on his own experiences, when in fact he didn't start using hard drugs until later in his life. The lyrics and pictures of me aren't necessarily just about fame or any one thing. They're definitely concerned with image and self-image in particular, which is obvious from the title. In the first verse, we get the lines, "Start, stop, and start, stupid acting smart, flirting with the flicks, you say it's just for kicks. You'll be the victim of your own dirty tricks. You've got yourself to tease and displease." We get the sense that there's hesitation and shallowness towards flirting with the flicks. Flicks is a somewhat uncommon slang term for movies, originating in the 1920s in reference to the flickering appearance of film projection. It also ties in with the theme of the song and the coin-op TV mentioned a few lines later. The word flirting, besides the catchy consonant alliteration with flicks, perfectly mirrors the hesitant and shallow disposition communicated in the first two lines. The last two lines answer the unspoken question of what happens when someone flirts with the flicks. You'll be the victim of your own dirty tricks implies you aren't being honest with yourself when you say it's just for kicks. It's common to downplay your interest in success and fame as an artist. You don't want to seem narcissistic, you're really doing it for the art, the pursuit of truth. But of course, if that was true, should you even care at all about people seeing or hearing your work? Should you even share it at all? You've got yourself to tease and displease, besides containing a nice internal rhyme, suggests you could avoid the whole thing if you just made music for yourself. We're already seeing a concise representation of the tension between truth and success, but the rest of this verse really starts to expand on it. Doors swinging wide, you walked in to hide. Looking at your feet, failure's complete. Saw you and me on the coin-op TV, frozen in fear every time we appear. When you start to gain recognition for your work, there's a common saying that doors open for you. As a musician, this can feel pretty literal. You start getting responses from venues and other musicians that used to blow you off. You get invited to parties and shows full of new people as your status climbs. Elliott Smith often wrote about the particular kind of loneliness you feel in a crowd, especially at a party. The mention of the coin-op TV really stands out. For For those who, like me, may be a bit too young to have seen the last of these in the 90s, coin-operated TVs were first created in the 1940s and used to populate hotel lobbies, laundromats, and even restaurants. The name is pretty self-explanatory. You'd put in some coins and the TV would pick up a signal from a local station. The reference to a coin-op TV is strange because they were already almost completely out of use by the 90s when Elliott Smith wrote this song. Television and its modern forms, like Netflix and Hulu, is probably the most potent example of media as social sedative in the culture industry theory. And here, Elliott emphasizes the cheap and fleeting nature of both this kind of entertainment as well as fame itself by using the image of a timed, coin-operated TV. This is my favorite lyric in the song. This lyric is so impactful that it's actually mentioned in the short Wikipedia article on telemeters, or coin-op TVs. The final line of the verse mirrors the internal rhyme of the first stanza and makes crystal clear the emotion behind fame and success, fear. And notice he isn't just talking about himself as the narrator of the song. The use of you and me implicates us, the listener. We all want our 15 minutes of fame, but when we see ourselves on the coin-op TVs, rather than glory and grandeur, what we actually get is grotesque. In the chorus, we get another example of the tension between pursuit of success and pursuit of truth. I'm not surprised at all, and really why should I be? See nothing wrong. So sick and tired of all these pictures of me, completely wrong, totally wrong. The word wrong is sufficiently vague that it's able to pull deep meaning out of this apparent contradiction. He sees nothing wrong in the pictures, but then says they're completely and totally wrong. A picture is different than a drawing or painting. It captures the reflections of light from objects in the real world, while artistic intent is still present in where the camera is pointed and other technical aspects like the lens, aperture, and exposure. There's a directness to pictures and videos. The same is true when we record audio. The wax, tape, or digital recording merely captures the sound, the vibrations we made to be played back. The indifference of these mediums can deliver some pretty unflattering pictures of us, and they can't be argued with. You see nothing wrong because it merely captures you as you are, in sound or in light. If you choose to chase and achieve it, your fame and success is ultimately built not around you, but pictures of you, either actual images and videos or the way you present yourself to fans. It's a new version of you that you now have to contend with, likely built on your most marketable traits. More and more, this is something we all experience with social media. We're encouraged to market ourselves socially and professionally. And like moths to a flame, we chase our slice of success and fame, even if it's only a false front. I want to reiterate that this is just my interpretation of the lyrics, and I really believe there's not one right way of reading any of his songs, or most songs in general. I'd love to hear anyone else's interpretation of the lyrics or what the song has meant to them in the comments, and see if we can start a discussion about it. Anyway, there's definitely more to discuss, but let's get into the guitar part. I thought I could fit this all into one video, but I decided to make the guitar tutorial its own video, which will be out tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys then.